Good morning. How you all doing today? So today we are starting the next chapter. It's kind of a fun one. You're going to do a lot of this next year when you do geometry. You're going to do it when you get Algebra 1. It's kind of a really important concept as we move forward. And something called a square root. So what is a square root? Yeah, look at that. We finally found the square root. It's a root that's square. What about that one? Yeah, it's kind of a square root. Actually has nothing to do with that. Kind of a fun little thing. So let's just look at this square for a second. And let's say the area of it is 81. So what would each side be? Well, you used to do this in like 4th or 5th grade. And you say, all right, what number do I multiply by itself that will give me 81? Oh, would it be 9? Possibly. So each one of these would be 9 yards. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's say we take a different size square whose area is 64 inches. Okay, so we ask ourselves, what times what gives me 64? And that would be 8. So each one of these would be 8 inches. And you're like, well, what does this have to do with square roots? 8 squared is 64. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's do the next one. X squared equals 9. Okay. So what do I multiply by itself to give me 9? Well, I know 3 times 3 equals 9. I also know that -3 times -3 equals 9. So if I put in 3 for x, or I put in -3 for x, and I square it, I'm going to get 9. Okay, well, let's look at this one. What happens if I take a number and I square it and I get 25? Oh, 5 times 5 is 25. -5 times -5 is 25. So if I put 5 in for x or -5 in for x, and I square it, it will give me 25. Okay, so what is a square root? Basically, yeah, no, it's not that. It's a number which you multiply by itself to get a value. Okay, what does that mean? All right, so let's think about what we did with that first square. The first square had an area of 81. And we needed to know what did we multiply by itself to get 81. So it was 9, because 9 squared is 81. Do you remember when we talked about, or we've done this for a while, we always say in math there's always an operation to undo something. So addition undoes subtraction, or subtraction undoes addition. Multiplication and division undo each other. Okay? Squaring something needs to have something that undoes it. Okay, and even cubing something and all that kind of stuff. So you have something called a root. Okay, so today we're just going to look at square roots. What does a square root do? It undoes a square. So when you multiply something by itself, that's called the square of it. Well, finding the square root is saying, oh, I have a number. What did I multiply by itself to get it? So today we're going to have perfect squares help us out, because they're very simple. They make life a lot easier for us. So what is the square root of 49? Okay, so basically that's asking us, what number do I multiply by itself to get 49? All right, well, we did this in 3rd grade. What times what is 49? Well, 7 times 7 is 49. And then last year, -7 times -7 is 49. So that means 7 and -7 would both be the square root of 49. Okay, it's kind of interesting now. We're going to start getting multiple answers for a variable. It's kind of cool. So it has to be positive. You can do a square root of a negative, but it really doesn't make sense. It's called imaginary. You don't do that this year. I think that's algebra 2. Okay, so that would be like junior year for you guys. So anyway, let's look at this. So the square root of 49 is 7 and -7, because I multiply 7 by itself to get 49 and -7 by itself to get 49. So again, what was a perfect square? Oh yeah, those were the numbers where you take an integer and you multiply it by itself. And that's what the perfect square is. So we did this in like 3rd grade, right? 1 squared is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, so 1, 4, 16, 1, 4, 9, 16. The next one is 25, correct. And then 36. Oh, by the way, 49. How about 225? That's perfect square as well. So any of these perfect squares, when you take the square root of them, are going to have an integer as their square root. Okay. Oh, I get it now. Okay. So now let's look at what these things are. So a square root sign looks like this. And the technical term is a radical sign. Now, why do we call it a radical sign? Well, in Latin, you guys remember doing word study in 6th grade? Hopefully your elementary teachers taught you a little bit about word study. And if you ever got into like the blue group or you worked in the blue book in 5th grade, you got to Greek and Latin roots. So anyway, radix is a Latin meaning root. Okay, so that's why we call it a radical sign. So basically, it looks like the combination of a check mark with a division sign. Okay, so the difference between a division sign and a radical sign is we have this little check part right here. Now, this little part coming down here, you don't always have to put that. Most people don't, but sometimes you might see that. So let's look at this one. Okay, the square root of 25. So this is called the radical sign. Okay, the number inside is called the radicand. Great, if you remember that part, fantastic. Not the end of the world if you forget some of it. Okay, I bet you most adults probably don't remember that. But they do know the radical sign. So the way we would say this is the square root of 25, or we could say radical 25. So if we were in class, and even as we're going through these videos for the next couple lessons, you might just hear me say radical 25. Same thing as square root of 25. They mean identical things. It's just that it's a little bit faster to say radical than square root. It might not seem it, but it's just easier. Okay, especially when we get to things a lot more complicated. This is really basic square root stuff. So this is saying square root of p or radical p, and this is asking for what's the positive square root of p. Now, you also could have a negative outside of your radical. Okay, and if you do, it just means that whatever your square root is, you take the negative of that. So whatever the negative square root of that happens to be. Then you might see a positive and a negative. That's going to happen when you get to algebra 1, probably algebra 1. Okay, you're going to learn something known as the quadratic formula, and then you're going to have to deal with positives and negatives. Okay, so that means both squares of both square roots of p. So let's find the square roots. So the square root of 25 is, well, 5 squared is 25. So the square root of 25, or radical 25, is 5. Now, I also could have a negative 5. I'm not going there right now. That's going to be next lesson. We're going to get a little bit more complicated, but right now we're just going super basic. So negative radical 49, or negative square root of 49, is, okay, so 7 squared is going to give me 49. So negative radical 49 is going to be negative 7. So the 7 comes from this part. The negative comes from there. Last but not least, plus or minus radical 16. Well, what squared gives you 16? Well, it's 4. So the answer would be negative 4 and positive 4. So this is where it gets a little crazy, where you're going to have 2 separate answers for the same equation. It does happen. It's going to be fun. Okay, so today we just did the first part of lesson 9.1. We're going to do the rest of it next class. So good luck. Reach out to me if you need any assistance. Stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.